goddamn. Just goddamn. The whole thing. Just goddamn. I honestly don't even know what else I can say at this point. Turn off my notifications. Well, you know what? No, hang on. I got a better idea. Turn those back on. Switch my phone to vibrate mode. There. Sorry about that. I'm making it crystal clear that I don't want to be interrupted while I'm talking this out. So. Yeah. That final duel was just as good as I remember. To be honest with you. The sub didn't fare quite as well as I would have hoped, but it was still excellent. I did end up giving all 4 points to the dub. Not because I wanted to do the meme, but because I genuinely believe this entire 4-parter is better in the dub. I do. What kills the sub version is the dialogue, to be blunt. The dialogue has this nasty habit in the sub of being how to put this delicately. Crap. Just absolute crap. Now, a lot of people will probably say, well, what about all the superfluous dialogue and all the stupid lines? Yeah, those are pretty bad and pretty dumb. But a lot of the big lines, right? Like say a Thames encouragement of Yugi, with like the exception of the final one, I think is better in with two exceptions. I think Inca Thames dialogue is just better in the dub. The two exceptions are when he's actually talking about Yugi's strength, which is his kindness. When he's talking about Yugi's kindness, that is actually good in both versions. But when we're talking just the Thames dialogue, no, I'm sorry. Thames dialogue kind of just sucks in the sub, because it's all about it's all about the pride, right? Whereas in the dub is the readiness to separate. I have to give this my all to prove that we're ready to separate, right? Also, that whole it also doesn't help that Ishizu right at the end is like, the Eye of Ajat has recognized you as a real pharaoh. Wait, so if he won against his opponent in the battle ritual, he'd be a fake pharaoh? The fuck is that? You know? Like, I get the whole point. The whole point of the battle ritual is to, you know, be defeated by a worthy opponent, but it's like, not a fan of that. Yet. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna talk about the general beats of the episode. Well, most of the general beats of the episodes first. Then we're gonna talk about the duel itself, because I want to talk about the duel uninterrupted. And then we'll talk about the final bits, and then of course I will give my final thoughts on not only the Millennium World, the World of Memory slash ceremonial duel stuff, but also the series as a whole, because I mean these are the final 4 episodes. So let's get started. So in both versions, they talk about there being effectively a window of opportunity to do this. And I forgot to tie up my hair, so I will tie up my hair while I keep talking. They talk about how it has to be now. right? It has to be now. We have to do this battle ritual now because Anzu doesn't want to say goodbye so soon. And I kind of feel like that kind of plays into the same garbage, the same garbage that happened uh, with Subatem at the beginning of Doma, if you remember. Because if you remember, at the beginning of Homa, Atem just pieced out. He took over Yugi's body and started immediately beelining for the museum so that he could just unlock his memories and be done with it. To go into the after, he effectively was trying to piece out quickly. I hated that angle all the way back then, and because I felt like it kind of made Atem look like a dick, and I hated it. I absolutely fucking hated it. Ugh, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, I literally made a note about him just wanting to dip out in the sub for that at the beginning of that arc, and it was so stupid. I hated it. Which it kind of feels like it's neither version has a good excuse, right? The dub says he's going to have to stick around for 5,000 more years, and in the sub they say that if he doesn't do it now, or if he wins, then he has to stick around and be stuck in the puzzle for all of eternity. Which effectively means he'd be buried, by the way, because the spoilers, the Millennium items disappear at the end. Ugh, it's kind of annoying. Also, Kaiba is a dick in both versions because in the dub he's just being his usual dickish self. Like, fuck off with the friend. He's basically saying fuck off with the friendship. Kaiba is basically saying fuck off with the friendship speeches, and Seto is saying you're not canceling this duel. Go fuck yourself. Yeah, Seto is kind of a dick. Both Kaiba and Seto are both fucking assholes in this four-parter. But the problem is that we expect it from Kaiba. We don't expect it. We expect better from Seto. You know. You know. So Yugi returns the Millennium items, and Yugi and Atem are split into two. Ooh. One thing I do like in the sub though is Yugi actually thanks the Millennium Puzzle for granting his wish. I kind of like that. That's actually nice. Uh, I feel like the dub gets across the point better of why this has to happen, right? Because because Taya is looking at this like I don't want them to. I don't want to. I don't want to watch this. I don't want to. I don't want them to go through this. Who this yada yada yada. And Joey has to be like, no, this needs to happen, right? They need to prove how far they've come. You know, because the dub hammers in the point. This is a test to see if they're willing. They're testing their readiness to separate. This is to determine whether or not a Tem is destined to go back to the afterlife. This needs to happen, and by the time Teo fully protests, it's already as they say in the dub. It's too late to stop it. They couldn't stop it now at that point, even if they wanted to. And I kind of like that. Yet. So in the dub, Atem claims that he is that this is the first time he's ever hoped for his opponent's victory, And in the sub, it's all about his duelist pride, which I gotta be honest, I kind of get, but at the same time, I'm like, I prefer the angle of I need to give it my all to, because this is a test to determine whether or not we're ready to separate, right? Right. Now, while I'm not, okay. It all. I'm going to leave all of the moves in the duel for in the duel. So any notes that have to pertain to the duel, I'm actually going to leave until the duel. Okay. So that actually leads us into part two, which actually starts with an epic recap in the sub or in the dub. Excuse me. Excuse me. Kaiba continues to insult Halt because he's looking at them like, well, then how the hell would you who uh defeat the Egyptian gods, right? Because we knew that Atem was going to use the gods. Also, I gotta admit, a lot of the dialogue, even in the sub, is extremely fucking pointless. Like, yes, there is superfluous dialogue in the dub, but let's not pretend like there isn't superfluous dialogue in the sub. Okay, there is a lot of empty text going on in the sub, and it kind of is what drags this down, or what dragged this down and gave the dub the point. So Yugi shows confidence in things when Kaiba goes to leave because he's like, yeah, the writing's on the wall, I'm leaving, and then Yugi's like, no, 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 you stick around, and stick around to the end, please. And I also prefer him mentioning the bond between Atem and Seto, even if he's not willing to acknowledge it in the hub. So they talk about their journeys and how Yugi has gained confidence and strength and all this other stuff, and Atem has gained compassion and kindness. It's a nice synergy, and I actually like it. Atem constantly bounces back during the duel, which I actually do like. We'll touch on that more later. Later. He also starts influencing fate at one point, which I mean, yeah. I mean, come on, we knew that was coming. More confirmation that this duel was needed. Heated, heated. In part three, oh yeah, that's the other thing. In parts 3 and 4, overlap gets cut off. Like the last little bit gets cut off a little early, and I found that weird. I was like, what? I don't know if that's a Crunchyroll thing or if that's just how the episode was, but yeesh. It's almost as if the episode just wants to get on with it and frickin' end this crap. I don't because this is actually my favorite duel in the whole frickin' show. I can sit through overlap a bit. Ugh, but whatever. One thing I do like, though, another point. Oh, no, no, right. The other one I'm going to save for the duel, so I will save this one for the duel too. I was going to mention a thingy, but I'm not going to. I still prefer the test angle. I do love when it cuts down to Atem summoning Dark Magician that he's like in the sub. Atem is just like, thanks for waiting, Mahad. All right, come on out. Right? I don't know. Uh, I do love that Atem praises Yugi constantly throughout all of this. And I also like that Yugi hesitates on the final attack, but we'll touch on that more when we get there. And then it looks like the rest of that is all just the final thing. Except for two things I actually want to bring up before I cut back to before we start getting to the duel. Uh, I do like Atem's Faith in part 4 in the sub. That's cool. But there is one other thing I want to talk about. In the dub, the part 3 announces that part 4 is the final episode by saying to be concluded. Who did? Right? A big giant neon sign that says, "Yep, next episode's the final one." And the sub actually has something like that too. Who? But it's only really noticeable if you've been if like me, you've been watching it, constantly. See, see, Anzu has been narrating the previews, right? They just saying, like this is happening, and then usually it boils down to like a question of like, wait, hey, what's going on with that? And then next time, I'm insert episode title, Duel, stand by, right? Anzu sounds melancholic in part three's preview of the final episode. She sounds melancholic. Oh, like she's talking about the friendships and how a symbol and how it'll, our friendship will never fade and everything. And then she ends by saying, next time, next time the story that ends in light, the duel has ended. I love that detail. It's such a minor detail that they didn't need to bother with. I mean, it's an episode preview, right? But they did bother with it, and I like that. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's get into the duel proper now. Also, in case you think I forgot, Silent Swordsman and Silent Magician have underlines and 3 exclamation marks each. I won't forget to talk about them. Okay? I promise. I promise. We will talk about Silent Magician and them hips. Okay? We will talk about it. Anyways. Also, fun fact: Silent Magician, or sorry, Silent Magician actually gets more powerful than Silent Swordsman in this one, I think. Yeah, because Silent Swordsman only gets up to third. Actually, no, they both get equal points. Actually, never mind. All right, so Atem starts off the duel and immediately summons the Tricky by discarding one card. Keep that card in the back of your mind. It's going to come up a bit later. Right? Right. I actually kind of like the Tricky because it's one of those ones with like the easy special summon, which is funny because Tem would actually get or sorry, well, I shouldn't say a Tem, but like the Dark Magician like engine would get a better uh, summon from the hand 2000 attack point monster in the form of Apprentice Illusion Magician way later. I believe she came out in the DSOD movie pack, but I could be wrong. I'm not going to look it up. I will look it up and put text up on screen during editing. But yeah, actually, I think she came out prior to that. Whatever. Point is, yeah. There is Atem summons the tricky Hickey. Yugi counters with Swords of Revealing Light, which gets bounced. Now it's over to Yugi. Yugi. Speaking of Yugi, which gets bounced back to Yugi. In the meantime, Yugi uses Green Gadget to add Red Gadget to his hand, and he eventually summons Green, Red, and Yellow Gadget, which combined with Stronghold, the Moving Fortress. So each of the gadget monsters are basically just searchers. Urchers. They are effective. I believe It's called the Stratos type of monster, named after elemental hero Stratos. Stratos. Cue the meme because he was stupidly on the ban list for way too fucking long. On uh, and we're walking past that. But to get back to the gadgets, effectively they're kind of a way of constantly searching out they search out each other upon summon, which I actually kind of like. And if you manage to get all three of them on the field with, say, a card like Yugi uses, Ties of the Brethren, then you can actually beef up Stronghold, the Moving Fortress, which is actually a trap monster. Not the first trap monster we've seen, or the second, or the third, but it's the fourth we've seen. Wait, is that right? Embodiment of Apopus, Metal Reflect Slime, Zoma the Spirit. Yeah, I'm right. It's the fourth one. Which is kind of funny its own right. But yeah, Stronghold, the Moving Fortress. But unfortunately, Atem has a counter. Tricky Spell 4, which he sacks Tricky in order to summon as many monsters as Yugi has on the field. And since he has 4, well, that gives him enough tributes to summon Obelisk. Obelisk bashes Yugi down. And yeah. That hurts. So then Silent Swordsman shows up. Now, if you wonder why I made such a big deal and even did a voiceover during The Dark One Cometh to make sure I talk about these damn silent monsters here, it's because Silent Swordsman and Silent Magician are the first instances of level monsters that we've seen. Now, the real card game, it is effectively the level up mechanic, the level monster mechanic, which I gotta say doesn't really work as well. I feel it works better. It works better with the actual with the versions from the original manga and DMs and the DM anime specifically, where each turn they get stronger. So the more turns you can keep it on the field, the more dangerous it becomes, which can be effective. Just ask Raging Flame Sprite about that sometime. Or Exodia Necros, now that I'm thinking about it. No, the anime Exodia Necros, anyway. Hey. Silent Swordsman effectively is unaffected by spell cards, and then with Silent Magician, well, she kind of she just kind of had to sit on the field for with spell counters on her or for 5 of your opponent's turns before to have the card level up before she could become she could get dem hips and have 3500 attack. Which, fun fact, she's actually got like black robes in the anime, but in the actual card art she has white robes. Wrap your head around that shit. But I digress. But yeah, Silent Swordsman is really damn cool. But we'll talk about Silent Magician and her glow up later. Hitter. I should also mention Atem actually has a card that actually became a real card game about 10 years ago. Now at this point. Wait. The magic the I almost said magic card. The spell card Rebellion. The card that he uses to make Green Gadget attack, right? I actually kind of like that. That was cool. I like that. It, it right. So, oh, there's some more back and forth, and then Yugi manages after the ground erosion and turn jump combo, which fun fact was actually a card called Broken Axe, which because in the manga you can actually target the god cards with effects. That's why it worked there. But Atem effectively after he uses ground erosion and turn jump to beef up Silent Swordsman and weaken Obelisk, which apparently doesn't kill it, which doesn't kill because you're skipping to like the next, you're resuming from the battle phase. So effectively you're skipping 3 whole turns and resuming from the battle phase, right? So that's why Atem could call off the attack. Apparently in the manga you can't do that, and so for all intents and purposes you had to return to the same state. Eight. It's just the turn counter jumps up 3, and that's why Silent Swordsman was able to, get beefed up. Which in the manga, fun fact, means that Obelisk and Silent Swordsman crash. Yes, because yes, I did actually quickly read through the manga of this. I was not impressed. I'll be honest. Only the Obelisk is the only god card. It's way shorter. Dark Magician shows up immediately after Obelisk gets hosted, and somehow Mirror Force is able to destroy Andorra by reflecting its boundless Giga rays. Also, Battle City rules apparently because Atem activates Monster Reborn on Yugi's turn. Whatever. I'm leaving it alone. Just whatever. Kazuki Takahashi had fallen ill during this arc, so I'm not gonna be too harsh. I am just gonna be like, the fuck, and then move on. But that is when, but of course, Yugi's turn jump is responded to with Summoning Clock, which effectively lets Atem summon monsters equal to the number of turns that have passed while it was on the field. And because it was a new turn, well, now he can normal summon a new monster. Actually, I don't even think he normal summoned on the turn he attacked with Obelisk, so never mind. So, so he's able to keep on summoning. In the anime, if you're wondering, the god cards can be special summoned from the hand, and it's fine. They stay on the field, but they cannot be special summoned from the graveyard for more than one turn. They can only be revived for one turn, or brought back from banished for one turn. Kind of a weird loophole, but whatever. So, so Cyrus shows up. Did I say Slifer? Ugh. So Cyrus shows up as one of the summons, along with King and Queen's Knight, which of course automatically summons Jack's Knight. And then for Yugi's normal summon, he actually sacrifices all 3 of his knights to have a 5,000 Winged Dragon of Ra. And this is where we get the Tem version of the chant, which, yes, I wrote down. And of course, it's hieratic text in the Japanese version. We've been over the hieratic text. I don't want to reiterate my point about the hieratic text. I hate it. Moving on. But I do like this version of the chant. If you'll forgive the indulgence. Almighty protector of the sun and sky, I beg of thee, please heed my cry. Transform thyself from orb of light, and bring me victory in this fight. I beseech thee, grace our humble game. But first I shall call out thy name, Winged Dragon of Ra! Summons out the Egyptian god cards, and in the sub attempt says his partner, this is my full strength. Not as good of a line as Yugi, the true test will now begin. I just find that's an epic line for a cliffhanger, especially with the bombastic dub Egyptian god card, the Egyptian god theme. God, just chills every time I hear that damn thing. Every time I view that cliffhanger, I get chills every time. It's great. I love it. So then Yugi uses a trap card called Magnet Force and Magnet Reverse in combination with Valkyrian the Magna Warrior, the anime version of it, to basically constantly summon out the gadgets, including which apparently required him to attack Wick and bait out Mirror Force. I don't get why that is, but there it is. And obviously he predicted, he predicted Mirror Force, so there you go. Oh, oh, right? Because in part 3, he's able to use Magnet Force and constantly summoning the Magnet Warriors to blast and destroy Obelisk, and then Osiris and Ra follow immediately after that. But of course, Atem bounces immediately back and summons out Chimera, the flying mythical beast. Which then Yugi responds with Buster Blader. Yeah, this is basically just an entire showcase of all of the awesome monsters that have been used throughout this entire thing. We literally see all three of the Egyptian gods. We see Buster Blader, we see Summon Skull, we see Curse of Dragon, we see a version of Gaia. We see Dark Magician, we see Dark Magician Girl. We see Big Shield Gardna, we see Witch of the Black Forest, Watapon, and what else do we see? We see the face cards, obviously. Obviously. Love it. Beast of, and then of course we have Beast of Gilfer, who's actually used to lower the attack, which of course then prompts Atem to get back Gaia from the graveyard. Swift Gaia, the Fierce Knights, from the graveyard, so that he can just summon it without a sacrifice. I especially like in the dub where Atem is just like trying to guess what card I brought back. Guess what? You won't, because it's a card you didn't even know I had. And he announces it was the card that he discarded for the Tricky. Yugi basically asks, why would you toss out Swift Gaia immediately? I mean, it comes when you have a card that can put it back in your hand and in your deck. I think it's fine to ditch it. You know? Oh, I find that it's over dramatic to do that, but they do so because in both versions, Atem announces that he knew Yugi was going to defeat the Egyptian god cards. He was prepared for it. In the sub, he was ready for it, and in the dub, he knew it was going to happen, and that the real test was going to begin after the god cards were defeated. He kind of says something similar in the sub, but I prefer it in the dub, where it's like, okay, the god cards are defeated, now let's move on to the next part, right? So then Soul Rope is used after Buster Blader bites the dust to get out Witch of the Black Forest. And then Witch of the Black Forest is sacrificed for Summoned Skull. Oh, which then adds Marshmelon to his hand. And we'll talk about Marshmelon in a bit. Hit. 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 Of course, then this is when Atem starts influencing fate so that he can draw Big Shield Gardna to block Yugi's attacks. Hex. But Yugi counters with Curse of Dragon, which then prompts Summon Skull and Curse of Dragon to do a combo where Summon Skull gets him out of defense, Big Shield Gardner out of defense, and then Curse of Dragon deals Atem 1900 damage. So, after that, Atem then goes ahead and uses Dark Magic Curtain and pays half of his life points to call out Dark Magician, who makes the Shizu horny for some weird reason. He's in. Sorry, I have to poke fun at it because there is literally no point to Ishizu reacting to Dark Magician. To Mahad, specifically. There's no reason why Ishizu Ishtar should be reacting to Mahad. I'm sorry. You know, ancient self or not, you know? Although I guess that is kind of a thing in this season, isn't it? Since Kaiba kind of had his heart skip a beat when he met Kasara, but whatever. So Dark Magician comes out and is immediately boosted by Book of Secret Arts, which has him crush Summon Skull. Oh, and then he sets a monster and he switches Curse of Dragon into defense. Unfortunately, Atem somehow knows about Marshmelon's effect of when it gets attacked while it's face down. And it inflicts 1,000 points to the opponent, so he uses 1,000 knives to get rid of it, and then destroys Curse of Dragon. So then Yugi uses a combination of Blockman and Soul Shield to keep Blockman on the field and get himself 2 tokens that he can sacrifice for his ultimate monster after he plays Gold Sarcophagus to end the duel with the duel ending move, but we'll touch on that when it comes up. He places a card in the Gold Sarcophagus, and then he calls out Gandora, the Dragon of Destruction, in order to try and destroy Dark Magician. Oh yeah, one last thing I should bring up, as I just noticed in my notes. I actually like Yugi's line in the dub better at the final cliffhanger, because in the sub he says, "I will defeat." He's just confident he will defeat Dark Magician. In the dub, it's kind of more of a oh boy, I have to do this now. Well, because he says, in order to save my closest friend, I have to destroy my most trusted monster. Because, Dark Magician. Which the attempt he makes is with Gandora. Unfortunately, Atem activates a trap card called Black Illusion, which effectively makes Dark Magician immune from card effects for 1 turn. So, there you go. Oh, so Gandora failed, unfortunately. And then he calls out Silent Magician and blocks Dark Magician's attack with Magician Circle, which brings out Silent Magician. And then Atem continues the attack because duh. But then Yugi activates Spell Textbook and literally gets the same top deck that Yugi did. But instead of it boosting Slifer's attack Slifer, God damn it, I did it! I did it again. Fuck! But instead of boosting Osiris's attack, it boosts. It's actually the number of cards that Tem draws, which boosts Silent Magician's attack, which I actually kind of like. Of course, with the continuing of the attack, that would also mean that that Tem would lose because he's only got 700 points left, and he's attacking into a 3,500 attack Silent Magician with a 2,800 attack Dark Magician. But thankfully, Magician Circle called out Dark Magician Girl, which meant that Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl were able to combine their forces with the spell card Magicians Unite. Which isn't a quick play like it is in the anime, but whatever. Ever. But it's not enough. If the Magicians fall, and then Tem tries to go for game by summoning out summoning out Osiris. But of course it doesn't work. Although, in my opinion, that really shouldn't have worked either way, because it's like, wait, what? But whatever. I will say that I love Yugi's hesitation to attack, because he's realizing this is it. This is the final move. And I gotta admit, Sub Yugi's VA just fucking nails the call out of the final attack. You can hear him crying in the voice. No disrespect to Dan Green, but you can hear Yugi being extremely upset. I get the idea is supposed to be that he steals himself so that he can call out the final attack, and then he breaks down into tears completely. But I like that shakiness in the Japanese VA. Hey, so good. He calls the final attack. The final blast hits Tem. Yugi wins. Tem can finally be laid to rest. Tem goes to Yugi and is like, winners shouldn't be on their knees. Please, stand up. And in the dub, he's just like, he's lamenting it because he was so focused on the game that he forgot that what it meant to win this duel. Arguably, that's a good thing, but let's not split hairs. In the sub, it's actually more interesting because he claims he's always been a weakling. But Atem is like, no, Aibo, you are no weakling. You have the strength of kindness, and what we have given each other will stay with us forever. And he goes off. He declares his name as Atem. The door to the afterlife opens. And they bid Atem farewell. Love the music at the end there. Very fitting. I don't know if I'm using that song for this, but I will probably use it. I will probably use it for for the credits of DSOD. That beautiful choir and piano piece. Or is it piano? No, it's a strings instrument. And that beautiful melody that plays when Atem leaves. Love it. Of course, we have that last little bit of tension as the items are gone now. And the chamber collapses. And then the dub just kind of abruptly ends. ends. Whereas we have an entire final credit sequence with that kind of shows where a bunch of the characters are. Most of which I do not care for, like, say, Rebecca. We had to get one last gag of Rebecca hugging Yugi and Anzu being annoyed. Whatever. Ever. Jinochi being really fucking pissed off at Honda and Notugi for her immediately trying to go fuck his sister. Look, I don't care at this point. Like, I've made my jokes about that. And then, of course, the very final shot of the credits is literally my teaming up with Vivian to duel the Paradox Brothers on the Great Wall of China. I've already made my point about my. I've already made my point about my several times. I don't need to reiterate it. And then we get a post-credits scene where Yugi basically says that it wasn't just a Tim story, and that everyone has a story, and that story ends in light, and that this is the beginning of his story. I gotta be honest with you. I I get what they're going for with that, but that honestly sounds like pretentious. Excuse me, pretentious drivel. But then again, and I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm looking it up right now. Pretty sure the same can be said about the about it in the manga too. Who? Yeah, I'm not a fan of the way it ends because he does say that my story's just begun in the manga too, which you would think that was setting it up for a sequel series, but which I suppose could have been a thing, but it never came to pass. Sorry, Yug. So yeah, even with that abrupt ending, I will go ahead and say I do still prefer this four-parter, this entire four-parter in the dub, which means yes, at maybe it, which means yeah, possibly the dub will lose by only 4 points. Huh. We'll see. Because it's either going to lose by 4 points or 6 points. Well, 4, 5, or 6 points. Right? Because right now it's sitting at, well, 69. The dub's points are sitting at 69. Nice. Anyways. But yeah. That's it for the final four-parter. So, final thoughts on Millennium World. Way better than I thought it was than I remember. Holy shit! Like I said, this arc has become my favorite arc. It has. It's my favorite arc, bar none. And I'm not even gonna pretend. You know, the numbers that I'll talk about in the finale video are gonna back this up, and I know that they're gonna back this up. But god damn, it just the this arc just crushed it. Speaking of which, the sub also crushed it. Yeah, this final four-parter I gave to the dub and a couple of other episodes as well. Oh, in fact, I think it was like 9 total episodes that were. Yeah, it was 9 total episodes. Those that were given to the dub, but that also means that with like one or two exceptions, all of the rest of them were sub points. I think there was only like what one or two that were either, and then the rest were all sub. It's ridiculous. I will say that this arc, even in the manga, is actually well paced, despite Takahashi's health. I do kind of wish it was longer, but that's me wanting more. That's not me saying that there's stuff missing. I mean, there kind of is, but when you're watching it, in my opinion, you don't really feel that. It's only when you actually take a step back and think about it in hindsight that you start to realize, well, this wasn't explained, that wasn't explained, that wasn't explained, and that wasn't explained. You know? I do like the Shadow RPG. It was cool. I kind of wish this had been actual time travel, admittedly, but I don't know. Oh, also, Atem is not evil. We have established this. He's arrogant, but he's not evil. And yeah, I'll admit it. The final duel is still my favorite duel in the whole show. Like bar none. My top 3 favorite duels in this entire show absolutely are Final Duel. Uh, what is it? Final Duel. I want to say it's Final Duel, Match of the Millennium, Final Face Off. That order. Those 3 duels are fucking awesome, and I love them. Absolutely adore. Absolutely adore it. Speaking of, let's talk about DM as a whole now. All right, so Duelist Kingdom and Millennium World are the best arcs, in my opinion, bar none. I honestly, and I don't like using the word overrated, but it because overhyped and overblown don't feel adequate enough to explain how frustrating Battle City has always been to me. And what's funny is that this isn't even a hindsight thing where it's just aged poorly. No, this is simultaneously I didn't fucking like it when I first saw it, and even now, and it hasn't aged very well. Hell, not only because of the mechanics not gelling very well, hell, but there's several points where I feel like the narrative is it feels like characters have fucking plot armor, especially Merrick, and that just kills it for me. Like you seriously, Merrick has such thick fucking plot armor. You don't even have to know what fucking plot armor is to know that he's got plot armor on. And for fuck's sakes, right? Mai was a sacrificial lamb to him. Yami Bakura was a sacrificial lamb to him. Joey was a sacrificial lamb to him. And that sucked. It was bad. And I hated it. Also, Doma can go to hell because Doma was on another one that I looked at and I was just like, this is a great arc for you people. This is a fucking pretentious piece of shit that keeps shoving an untrue statement in my face and demanding that I claim it be true. And I also really fucking hate the KC Grand Prix, but everybody hates the KC Grand Prix, so that's not anything special. And then Virtual World, I can kind of see where the detractors of the Virtual World are coming from, of the Virtual World arc are coming from. I'm not on the list. I'm not a detractor of the Virtual World arc. I like the Virtual World arc. I just think it was poorly paced. I think if you moved it to after Alcatraz Island, it would flow a fuck of a lot better. And would probably, and if it was used, and if that was the excuse to shrink Ink Doma, I think the pacing would have been a lot fucking better with Doma. Because Doma felt like it didn't know what the fuck it was doing with its pacing, so shrug at that point. You might as well just chop the fucking episode count in half and be done with it at that point. Yeah, DM is not as good as I remember, so a full watch through, probably not. But I will probably at some point watch the Virtual World arc again. Sub or dub doesn't really matter. Millennium World is definitely going to be sub, even with the final episodes. Like I might watch the final four-parter or they're dubbed sometime, but otherwise, yeah, no. Dawn of the Duel is definitely watching the sub for me because it is honestly really good in the sub, and I was shocked how good it was in the sub. But yeah, that's DM. That is all of DM covered. Oh, I've been going for an hour. Yeah, that sounds about right. That sounds about right for this. I have to be honest with you. I love how densely packed this duel was. Because I love how epic this duel was, how intense the moves were. The back and forth was incredible. I fucking adore this duel. There's a reason why it's still my favorite duel of the show. Best duel of the show. And it's the one that ends the show. Go figure. But we're not quite done with Yugimoto just yet, and his friends just yet. Actually, technically, even after next week, we won't be done with Yugi just yet, since we will have one more encounter with it. Well, okay, sorry, that's a lie. Two more encounters with him, because we will be encountering him once in GX, in an episode that was never dubbed, and we will be encountering him, of course, in Bonds Beyond Time. So that'll be fun. But until then, I'm gonna go rest my voice. Man. Just 2 videos left, and then my coverage of DM is complete. Next week, we fast forward the clock an entire decade, for the dark side of dimensions. Till next time, this is Blue Wolf Alex of the Lore Walkers signing out. Have a good one. For the last time I will be saying it, dual standby. I'll save that one for next time. Later. See you next week for DSOD. Blue Wolf Alex the Lore Walkers signing out. Have a good one. Dual standby.